Today's episode is brought to you by the best store in the universe. Thousands of shirts, but not really. Shop now and support the show at maddoxrules.com. Welcome to the best debate in the universe. Every debate in the universe, from Whoop There It Is to Beating Your Kids. With over 3 million downloads, I'm your host, Maddox. With me is the Sultan of Swag, Mikey Bolts.
Hey there, Maddox.
And as always, the Deputy Cadet Moderator, Ron Babcock.
Hey.
And Junior Journalist, Taylor Nikolai.
I love you so much, Maddox.
Welcome back to the show. Guys, huge show, amazing debate this week. We're going to be talking about the Apu controversy. If you're not familiar, that's the controversy that... Well, we'll get into it a little bit later into the show, but it's the Simpsons character, Apu. Some people are having problems with that. And the voicemail number is on the website, guys. We've got a ton of voicemail coming up at the tail end of the show. Go to madcastmedia.com, click on any best debate episode. The voicemail number is at the bottom of the website. But first, I want to introduce our guest this week. She's an amazing producer, writer, very funny lady. Please welcome to the show, Lisa Ullman.
Thank you so much for having me. What a treat.
Lisa,
what an honor.
Welcome to the show. So honored to have you. You were the executive producer of the Ricky Gervais Show.
I was, yes. That was a show that was based on a podcast before podcasts were a thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It kind of like set a template for how to make a successful podcast show, like how to make it, move it from a podcast into a TV show, right?
Yeah, I think so. I always say it pays to be a fan. I was a giant fan of that podcast. I listened to it like all the time. I remember I was in Costa Rica and I would just be on a bus ride and listening to it for hours at a time, and was fortunate enough to be working at an animation studio, and we got to develop it and sold it to HBO as a podcast. So yeah, it was kind of the first time we took source material from something that existed. Well, I guess Dr. Katz was kind of a version of that.
Was Dr. Katz a podcast?
It wasn't a podcast, but I think it was a version of like routines that they edited together. Like I sort of look at it that
it was their like stand-up routines that they turned into him, like interviewing them on the couch.
Oh,
exactly.
Interesting.
It was audio that existed. So yeah, we probably ripped that off a tiny bit, but
so that was kind of like the kernel of inspiration, but then it became its own thing. I remember that was how I came across the Ricky Gervais podcast with Carl Pilkington.
Yeah, you didn't know about the podcast until the show?
Exactly.
Oh, see, that makes me so happy.
Yeah.
I always ask people, because I was such a huge fan of the podcast, that if anybody said to me, I hated the show, I couldn't watch it, like I would be like, respect, because I was such a diehard fan that I always wanted to know. When I find out that people didn't listen to the podcast until they heard about the show and then went back, that makes me really happy, and I feel like I did a mitzvah and brought Carl Pilkington to like more people than knew of him before.
Absolutely. And Carl spun off as his own brand, his own TV show, An Idiot Abroad.
Yeah.
Right?
Which I have nothing to do with.
One of the hardest times I have ever laughed was on a plane when I was watching Carl Pilkington go to China.
Amazing.
And I was like, that when you laugh so hard on a plane that it's uncomfortable for the people around you?
Yeah.
I was crying with laughter watching it. And he's like, that's really him?
Yeah, I had the pleasure to meet him once. I'll briefly tell the story because it's a great story. I was in London and I went to Ricky's office because I didn't get to interface with him that much. And Ricky and Steven were both there. So the first thing I did was say, can I talk to you about The Office, because I probably will never have the opportunity to have you both in the same room again. And I felt like that Chris Farley character, on SNL, where it's like, remember that time when that was awesome. Like that's how I was talking about The Office, but a little bit more articulately. And so we were in the middle of just talking and catching up on things. And Ricky had told me they had just recorded this episode of Idiot Abroad, where they were on a big, or that Carl was on a big ship. And then all of a sudden, Carl came like kind of ambling in, and he had on a baseball cap and he had a coffee and a muffin. And I had no idea he was coming, but he was a huge fan of the show. And I was so excited. I go, oh my God, it's Carl. And he wanted to meet me because he loved the show. And he took out this muffin and started eating it. And Ricky was behind his desk and he was like, mind the crumbs. Like he was just totally dissing him like right off the bat. And so we were talking, and Ricky was giving him a hard time about moaning on this ship. And he said, I was like proper seasick, when I took a fisherman's friend and everything. And I just go, Carl, fisherman's friend is a lozenge. And he goes, what? And I go, it's not a seasickness pill, it's a lozenge. Like I literally was in the podcast all of a sudden. He goes, oh, and Ricky goes, yeah. And I was like so excited that I got to like have that interaction. And then I was so kind of charmed because the thing about Carl in real life is that he does laugh and he does smile. Like we were very careful in the show, like always deadpan. And they showed that in Idiot Abroad a little bit, and he was like, and so I said to Ricky with Carl still in the room, I said, that was so amazing. He's so sweet and smiley in real life. And Ricky goes, and it doesn't take long for people to talk about him like he's not in the room. And I was like, I'm sorry, Carl, but it's totally true. It's like he's like this adorable dog that you're just kind of observing. So that was it was a great day. So yeah, he's the real deal, and that dynamic is 100% real.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's fantastic. Very cool. Thank you for sharing that story. And I should also mention that we know each other through a mutual friend, Michael Malice.
Love Michael Malice.
Michael Malice is an amazing guy. He's been on the show a couple of times, an amazing guest, brilliant writer.
Yes.
And he wrote, I actually have his book in the studio, Dear Reader, the Kim Jong-il, the unauthorized autobiography of Kim Jong-il. He went to North Korea for that book. I almost went with him. But we came to know each other through, you said you met Michael Malice through Harvey Pekar, right?
Yes. When I was working in animation, I was a huge Harvey Pekar fan, and I read Ego and Hubris, which is the Harvey Pekar kind of produced Michael Malice story. And it's an unbelievable book. I recommend it to everybody. And I was working on a project with Harvey, and we got to go to Ohio for Harvey's 70th birthday, and Michael was there. So we got to know each other at that birthday, which was, frankly, like World War III with all of the Pekar people and alliances. And I mean, it was I was literally in hog heaven. It was like, king of the, who's the king of the misfits, who's the right, who's the least mentally ill, war of like the mentally ill misfits / I mean, alliances, insanity.
Sounds like us every week.
Yes.
Really?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's exactly.
Right.
Every episode of the show. So Harvey Pekar, for those of you who don't know, is he was a writer, and he created so many graphic novels for his life, and they made a movie about him called American Splendor, and it's based on Harvey Pekar's story. And it was acted by Paul Giamatti. He was Harvey.
Judah Freelander played his buddy.
Yeah.
Great movie, really, really well done, very poignant. Talks about Harvey's life and how he never sold out. He went on the David Letterman show a few times, burned those bridges pretty bad.
Yeah.
Started like ranting on the David Letterman show. Brilliant movie. But one of the last books he wrote in his life was about Michael Malice.
Yeah.
And so that's how you came to be a fan of Michael Malice.
Absolutely.
And then he introduced us, and we became really good friends.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for coming on the show.
God, thank you for having me.
Yeah. So we should get to the debate this week, though. Which is,
let's fix some stuff.
let's fix some stuff. What's the problem with Apu? Now, there was a documentary that recently came out, which an Indian comic kind of tore into this character, Apu, and what the problems he had as an Indian American man growing up, and the stereotypes involved with that. So we're going to talk about that controversy because a lot of people are coming down very hard on both sides of this debate.
Super funny comic, by the way. Hari?
Yeah, is he?
Yeah, the guy's real deal. He's hilarious.
Great. Do you know Hari?
I mean, I don't know him. Like, I think we've been on like one or two of the same shows over the years.
Interesting.
I think we'd probably be on one of those, like, in comedy, like, you don't know people, you just, like, kind of nod.
Acquaintances.
Like, hey, like, you don't know people just by seeing their name on show flyers.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but he's a super funny dude. I haven't seen the movie yet, and I really want to.
The film explores encounters with negative stereotypes, racial microaggressions, and slurs against people of Indian and South Asian heritage disseminated through the character.
Thank you, Taylor. Thank you for the info. We should talk about that debate, but before we do, I want to hear everyone's buzzer. Here's mine. Lisa?
All right.
Ron Babcock and Taylor Nikolai. Wrong! There it is. If you hear a buzzer from anyone during this debate, that means someone is disagreeing with someone else. We're just chiming in with an interjection, or we want to point something out. But Lisa, as our guest this week,
yes,
I'm going to give you a first stab at this debate.
Okay.
What's the problem with Apu? If anything, do you have a problem with this character?
Yeah, Lisa,
Apu?
what's the problem?
Yeah.
Well, as somebody who's been to India twice, I have been to India twice, but I think that I'll use this example. I think that there are things that we kind of assume we have free license to have fun with in comedy, and then the reality of people's experience becomes something that we become more aware of, and we kind of start to backpedal a little bit. So, I think that, for example, I was speaking, and this is embarrassing, but it's just true and it's important. I oversee TV development, and there was a performer that I was meeting with, a writer-performer, and she's African-American. And she just said, I just came from a store, and I was like followed. And I just said, what are you talking about? Like, you don't live in South Central. I mean, I literally was like, what are you talking about? And she said, Lisa, I'm a Black woman. I get followed, because people think I'm shoplifting. And I'm like, I had no idea. Like, I was embarrassed. It's like, I have Black friends, but I had no idea that was happening. And this was probably 2 years ago, before I think Black Lives Matter was kind of at its hilt. But the more I'm kind of learning from different minority groups as, a relatively privileged Caucasian, the more I'm realizing that, yeah, it's not funny. So, with The Simpsons, there's always the opportunity to kind of build out another storyline. And it is kind of a problem. Like, we are making fun of him based on his accent. And I think everything's fair game as long as maybe that character has the opportunity to, I don't know. It's not the Simpsons tone to sort of say, to kind of give it back, to have that character give it back to him. But, to at least expand the storyline or explain like the immigration process or explain like why that character loves what he's doing. Again, it's new. I never thought of it as a problem, but I give credibility to the argument.
Okay, that's interesting. Okay, good argument. Good first stab at the debate, but completely wrong. And I'll
all good.
Yeah. Garbage right out the gates.
Yep.
Right out the gates, Lisa, and I'll tell you why.
Okay.
I'll tell you why. So I read this article.
I could feel the emails just burning up already.
Oh yeah,
That's
bring
cool.
it.
Tell us why, Maddox.
Bring
Go
it.
ahead.
I'm going to tear into this fucking thing.
That's cool.
Okay, and I'm ready. I'm so glad you took that position because this is really the side
You're
of
so
the debate I wanted
prepared,
to argue.
and this isn't
Yeah.
a build
I'm
up.
super
Yeah,
prepared,
we're
yeah.
And
good.
let's be clear, Maddox is always right.
Correct.
And
Thank
a
you,
privileged
Taylor.
white male. And a privileged white male. Go ahead.
Oh, really? Okay, we'll get into that. We'll get into that,
We
Lisa.
have a whole chapter on
Yeah,
that.
we'll get into that. That's
Okay.
right. So there's this article on Vox that talks about this. It's the Simpsons Apu controversy. It says, what if The Simpsons had aged in real time? What if the show had launched in 1989 and here in 2018, all the characters were 29 years older? Bart would be pushing 40, Lisa in her late 30s, Maggie would be in her early 30s, but smack dab in the middle of the portion of the millennial generation hardest hit by the 2008 economic collapse. Homer and Marge would be somewhere in their 60s, probably still scrambling to make ends meet. So they're saying that what if the Simpsons, these beloved characters who we have come to love, and they never aged because they're fucking cartoon characters.
Right.
What if they'd come to age and become modern and adapted? It says the basis of Hari's argument has never been Apu must go away, or even Apu is the most racist character imaginable. It has always been that The Simpsons is a funny show and one that has given the character of Apu more dimensions than a lot of shows would have. But it still has a massive blind spot when it comes to a character voiced by a white man with a stereotypical Indian accent who remains stuck in a dead-end job. Now, I watched part of his documentary on True TV, and actually I have a clip I wanted to play from it. Listen to this. They kind of set up what the problem is with Apu.
Problem is we didn't have any other representation in this country.
There was no Aziz, no Mindy, no Cal, no that dude who was on Lost, no politicians or reporters, and no whatever Deepak Chopra is. This is all we had. Apu reflected how America viewed us. Servile, devious, goofy.
And that creates a problem when the most popular show on television, which it was, is showing mainstream America what an Indian is. Right. And it's a pot-bellied dude who can't speak English, is an idiot, basically.
Yeah, okay.
And is Homer a genius, like bringing home millions of dollars? Are other characters groundbreakingly successful in their fields?
Right.
Was that show designed to make just Abu?
Well,
you know what I mean?
The argument is that because there was so little Indian representation, that the one prominent Indian character that was on TV, I guess in The Simpsons, was kind of a negative stereotype. At least that's what they would characterize it as. And he complained in this series. He had a bunch of Indian comics in a room, and he said that as growing up, we were all bullied, and part of the way we were bullied specifically was "Thank you, come again." You know, that Indian stereotype from The Simpsons. And that's the problem that they had with it, is that, first of all, their complaint is twofold, two-pronged. First, there was not enough representation, okay? But then when they do get representation, they don't like the representation. And they have a problem that it was voiced with a white guy. Now, I have a problem with that problem, personally, because representation, I feel like, is a red herring. I am Armenian, and I am I've never seen representation on TV. Any Armenian, anything.
You have kind of on
Who?
E with the Kardashians, but you don't.
Oh, gosh.
This is to your
What
point.
about-
There you
That's
go.
to your point.
What about
though.
the what is it? The Shahs of Sunset? Is that Armenian?
No, that's Persian.
That's Persian.
Ron.
Oh man, is
Yeah.
that so? And those are different.
Well,
Those are very different.
If you see the
And
rose
everyone
gold,
should realize that,
yeah.
which I realized very earlier than this moment.
Yeah. Oh, did
Yeah.
you? Oh, you knew
Absolutely.
that. So that
I'm
was
woke.
You're very woke.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this.
There's been hasn't there's had to be some Armenian stuff
No.
on
Drug
TV.
lords. I feel like drug lords and gun runners.
Yeah, terrorists.
Come on.
Yeah,
Come
terrorists,
on.
yeah.
And one of
Let's
those
be
pawn shop.
realistic.
Yeah.
I got cast,
Anyone on TV who's trying to sell you a kite, probably Armenian.
a watch more like it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Actually, a suit, a nice suit, or maybe
the side store perfume shops in a mall, maybe.
You know what, Mikey? A little bit too much English on that one,
All right,
Mikey.
sorry.
Hit a little too close to home
Yeah.
there, Mikey.
Let's go to Macy's.
I got cast in a TV show one time, and they said, you got to go check in with wardrobe. And I said, okay, great. I walked in, bright-eyed. I'm not an actor, so I don't really, I don't know this world. And I thought, wow, wardrobe, holy shit. And they hand me this bag of clothes. They said, go put this on. Great. So I walk into the dressing room, and I put on these pants, and they looked great on me. I'm like, yes. And I put on the jacket, and I looked at myself in the mirror. I'm like, yeah, this looks great. And I look, what else is in this bag? What else do they want me to wear? It's a bunch of gold chains.
I knew it.
I took it out and I put it on, and I realized I'm wearing a tracksuit with gold chains, which is, first of all, looks amazing on me.
Yeah, well,
I don't.
Yeah.
It's an Armenian
some
stereotype,
stereotypes are true, and
Yeah.
sometimes they work for the best.
and I can never wear that. The thing that looks best on me, I can never wear. I can never drive a white
Maybe
Mercedes.
just Armenian people have figured out what it really means to be comfortable.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, we have,
Yeah.
Ron, and we get shit for it constantly.
Well, it's because of the way you guys drive. Okay,
yeah.
Honestly,
Oh,
this
yeah.
is like the one thing that I'm kind of racist about is because I work in Glendale, which is the only part of Los Angeles where people cut you off and give you the finger.
Uh-huh.
It is just
move out of the way.
It's like a real. I mean, every time I go, I'm like, this fucking part of town.
This is
It's
a good
crazy.
debate.
Real
This
aggressive.
will be a good debate.
So, okay, so look, sorry, Armenians drive like samurais. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah.
They were so badass on the road.
Because you're so flexible in your tracksuits that you can really turn the wheel really quickly.
I was deeply in love with an Armenian sidebar, but that's it. I'm just letting you know I'm pro-Armenian.
Hey, who isn't? though?
Yeah.
All the listeners of the show. Thank you, Lisa.
Mhm.
So this representation thing pisses me off because what it really says, rather than looking at the positive of it, which is, well, we now we have someone who represents us, and it's a positive stereotype. What do you want him to be? What did you want Apu to be? Like an engineer? You want him to be an engineering student? You want him to be a doctor? Those are all stereotypes too. But it's only because he's a convenience store owner and he's voiced by a white guy. I personally don't find that offensive as a non-Indian man.
As someone who's not part of the group, I have no problem with it. Is that what you're saying?
Well, so so there's been kind of a backlash because according to Variety, the producers of The Simpsons have kind of responded to it. I think Gene was his name. Al Jean, yeah. And they kind of addressed
Or Al
this.
Reese, something Gene. Anyway,
Yeah.
go on.
So they said they kind of addressed this in a recent episode. Here's the actual quote, what they said in The Simpsons. Something that started decades ago when it was applauded and inoffensive is now politically incorrect. What can you do? She says. She then looks over at a framed picture of Apu, which has the line, "Don't have a cow" written on it. Marge then responds saying, some things will be dealt with at a later date. To which Lisa says, if at all. And that pissed everyone off. That seemed to piss off a lot of people.
So I had never thought about that before. Is "Don't have a cowman" an Indian joke?
No,
No.
but they did make it. They did make a reference to it with Apu one time in an episode where Apu became a vegetarian, or dated a vegetarian, and he said, "Don't have a cow, man," and like trying to make it literal.
Okay.
It was a funny joke.
It is.
Cowabunga.
Yeah, no, that's Taylor. Stay nice.
Flying too close to the sun.
Yeah,
Taylor.
too close. Yeah,
Really on the line there.
yeah.
I'm sorry.
Kid Icarus over there.
Okay, so wait,
But
I would like you to clarify this argument though, because I agree that it was of a time and a place where they didn't do anything. They didn't do anything wrong. It's just more about my having empathy and understanding the issue.
Like, can the character has the character grown since then?
Well,
Have they
cartoon
gone?
characters don't really grow, so I understand that. But yes, it's
But I
like,
mean, have
can you
they
expand a
delved into
storyline?
deeper storylines?
Backstory,
Because
exactly.
I'll be honest, I haven't watched The Simpsons in a while.
The character's gotten married, has had many, many children, which is also kind of an Indian joke. So there are kind of layers on the stereotype. That being said, I agree with Maddox because he's always right.
Thank you, Taylor. But at what point are people going to be okay with this? And should we have arbiters of taste and culture? Should we have people who are constantly, I guess, like gatekeepers for what's okay to joke about, what's okay to represent? Here's my big problem with the representation, Lisa. This is the crux of my entire argument. The Oscars happen, and you have the Oscars so white movement, right? Oh, everyone's so white. And then the Oscars corrected themselves, the industry corrected themselves, and just went out of their way to make
affirmative action.
I mean, they went out of their way to kind of like be more inclusive of color, right? And it's color.
Insincere, felt insincere.
It is insincere. And what the message is at the heart of it is that if women need women to feel representation, blacks need blacks to feel representation, Armenians need Armenians, Indians need Indians. What that essentially is saying is that we can't identify with people who don't look like us. Mm-hmm. I think it is growing us further apart than together. Representation, fine, I'm okay with it, but not at the expense of humanity. And that's what's happening, I think. I've watched TV my entire life, and I never felt like I couldn't identify with people who didn't look like me. I can watch the Cosbys, I can watch the Jeffersons, I can watch the Simpsons, I can watch any, Married with Children. I grew up in a very atypical household. My family grew up screaming at each other. My mom and dad are both from Syria. We're Armenians from Syria. My mom spoke 5 different languages. My first language was Armenian. And I was raised eating all sorts of crazy bullshit. And I was the one kid who... Do you guys know what za'atar is?
Yes.
Za'atar. So for the listeners at home, you do, Lisa, of course. But za'atar is basically like a mixture of like thyme and cumin.
It's a rarefied spice. It's like a very in spice. Like you go to like farm-to-table restaurants and your roasted broccoli.
Hey, can you pass me the za'atar, please?
Yeah, it wouldn't be that readily available. It's topped. Dishes are topped with za'atar.
Yeah.
And when you said za'atar, I thought of the genie machine in Big for a second.
Yeah.
But that's Zoltan. Right?
Zoltan, yeah.
Is it Zoltan that makes the wish?
Yeah, Zoltan. No, that's Zoltar.
That's Zoltar.
Zoltar.
Yes,
Yes.
it is
Very
Zoltar.
Close. One letter away from being Za'atar.
Yeah. Za'atar.
And Za'atar, it has like toasted sesame seeds in it, and you eat it with some olive oil.
So would you put Zoltar on something like cottage cheese?
No, you wouldn't. Ron, we got voicemail about that.
Okay. I'm just asking a question. I wasn't referring to that.
Throwing some shade.
All right,
Because
let's
I
get
like
back to
cottage
the
cheese
debate.
now.
Yeah. Okay. So you grew up with this za'atar.
Za'atar, and I went to school, in elementary school. Every kid like pulled their lunch out of their sack, and everyone had normal shit: peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, cheese sticks, those little fucking
There we go.
dip sticks, crackers, fun stuff, gummies. I pulled out a Za'atar sandwich, and people are like, "What the fuck are you eating?" I'm like, "Oh, it's just it's Za'atar with a little bit of olive oil and cucumbers on it." And they're like, "What the fuck is?"
You just have a Ziploc bag full of hummus that you cut the corner off and squeeze into your mouth.
and then the kids started making fun of me. They're like, "Hey, look at Maddox eating birdseed over here." And I became as known as and you know what was even worse about that is my dad actually did own a bird store.
Wow.
Can I just say, throughout this whole show, you've told us about some interesting things that your dad has done. I would love to hear about all of them, even if it was in a slower, fast format one day or privately.
Well, maybe, you know what? Maybe we'll do it for a bonus show. I'll talk about Maddox
Father's
versus the
Day.
universe.
Father's Day.
Ooh,
there we
Father's
go.
Day
Yeah.
episode, commemorate your dad.
Yeah, there you go. So anyway, that was my upbringing. It was very atypical. I was called the N-word in school because I grew up in a very white city.
Okay.
And I was the darkest colored kid in school. And they put the word sand in front of it too. So I was the sand N-word in my school. And that's how I was raised. The first friend I ever made was in first grade. And he kept calling me the N-word over and over and over again.
Oh my God.
That was my upbringing. So I don't feel like I have like, and what pisses me off about being Armenian is you're too ethnic to be white and you're not ethnic enough to get anything for it. So I remember that I had a meeting in Hollywood when I first came out here, and I sat down with the producer, and he's like, so what do you got? I'm like, what, you mean script? He goes, no, like ethnicity.
Oh my.
And I'm like, what? I'm Armenian. He goes, that doesn't really count. And I'm like, well, what counts?
I don't know what you want me to do here.
He's like, you got to be Jewish. You got to be like something at the time.
Yeah.
And he's like, you got to be Jewish. You got to be gay, like something. And I'm like, well, this sucks. This
Yeah,
sucks.
you probably didn't qualify for scholarships necessarily either.
No, I
right?
didn't
You're just
qualify
from
for
another
shit.
country. Yeah.
Well,
that's
Maddox, do you
interesting.
think that people would have less of an issue if it was voiced by a white male?
If it wasn't,
or not voiced by a white male.
Or yes, correct. Yeah, sorry.
I think
if
people
it was,
would have less of an issue if it wasn't voiced by a white male.
Do you think people would still have problems with the stereotypes of the character if it was voiced by someone of Middle Eastern descent?
Indian? Yes, I think so.
Yes, sorry, not Middle Eastern.
Southeast Asian.
Yes,
Indian. Yeah.
Okay.
I think they would.
So, but don't you feel like when there is characters of ethnicities put on TV that the first iterations of those characters are caricatures? They're stereotypes.
Will and
like,
Grace.
Yeah, exactly. So like the first gay guy you have on is this like way over the top, just like the huge character of a gay guy. And then as the years go by, it starts to get more measured, portrayals, and you get to a point where a character's gay and it's not even a big deal. The character just happens to be gay. I feel like that's, I don't know, has that happened in the world of Indian characters, or is it just all still it's Sanjays and Apus?
No, we have a ton of Indian comics. We have a ton of Indian characters on TV now. We had that show, the Indian family. Is it Fresh Off the Boat? That had an Asian. It was Asian, but they had an Indian family too, didn't they? Well, you got Aziz Ansari. What more? You got Mindy Kaling on The Office.
Yeah, you have Aziz's show on Netflix. You had Kumail in The Big Sick.
Yeah, very funny.
And also on Silicon Valley. So I mean, you are getting the other characters where there's more nuanced versions of it. So I feel like a lot of times just the first iteration is always going to be a stereotype, and then people grow out of that. But it takes a good 15 to 20 years.
Mm-hmm. Right. But I think it's kind of cowardly to just now come around and say, okay, well, now I have a problem with the show that's 20 years old. That actually at the time, I think a lot of Indian people have been tweeting at Al Jean, and he's been retweeting some of these tweets.
Oh, really?
Yeah, saying that
people are allowed to have a reaction to it, though. I mean, just because it's an old show doesn't mean that you can't still have a reaction to it, especially if it affected you in your life growing up, that you were made fun of, with catchphrases of Apu's, thank you, come again. And people are finally adults enough and they actually have a platform. They're going to be like, yeah, this is kind of fucked up. We should grow beyond this character. People are allowed to respond to it, right?
Yeah, I guess, but I mean, to then say that they did something bad or wrong because it was a stereotypical character, I think it goes in the opposite direction, because then it makes everyone afraid to include any type of character. And I'm dealing with this right now. I've worked on TV shows where we had an Asian character and we had a deadline and we needed a voice quickly. And the voice had to be kind of an Asian because it was from someone from China on the mainland. So we needed an accent. No one Asian was in the office, so sometimes you just have to have someone hop in on the mic and quickly do an accent or something, and it's not because we don't want to hire someone. We would love that. But
did you guys go around the room and be like, okay, everybody do... listen, it's not going to leave this room. Just everybody do what you think is the best Chinese accent. Nobody turn their phones on.
Do you think that they have more of an issue that it occurred in the first place or that it's continuing?
Yeah, I haven't seen the whole movie because I think it's not on streaming yet, is it?
It is. It's online. I have another clip of it though. Here's
on the
some more.
Hulu.
Yeah. Here's some more. Here's another clip of it, kind of setting up the problem some more.
I never heard anyone say they liked Apu because he exposed the idiocy and bigotry of Americans and the struggles of the average immigrant. No, it was just, I love Apu. That voice is hilarious.
What's wrong with that? What's wrong with liking Apu because he's a kind of a goofy, kind of pot-bellied idiot on the show? It's not saying that all Indians are like that, clearly.
But I think that's what they're saying.
Let's have the guest speak.
I want to hear what Lisa says.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, it's so much pressure because we're talking about something so sensitive. No, there's nothing. I just feel like it's a timing issue. I just feel like back in the day when The Simpsons was created, that sensitivity wasn't as necessary. What we're learning now is the people who the filmmaker Hari, who was bullied, and his experience and other, these Indian comics experiences were that they were associated with a big pop cultural influence and to their detriment. So in terms of how do you course correct that now, ideally with humor, and if it's, it doesn't mean that you take the humor out of the character, but it seems only fair to allow those people to voice their experience, and it really just feels like a timing issue. I just don't think that the Simpsons would approach it the same way now. They might give it, just because everything's changed so dramatically just in the last 5 years.
So if you wrote for The Simpsons, what would you do?
Right now,
Yeah.
to address the problem? I don't know. I would do like a whole interesting backstory episode on him.
They've done stuff like that,
Right.
where they kind of tried to explain the backstory of Apu, and he even had a cousin on the show who was voiced by an Indian comic at the time. But that still didn't, quell any of this anger.
And also, who is that evil doctor? Isn't he like Mexican? That horrible
Dr. Nick?
Dr.
Yes,
Nick, yeah.
yes. So that's also a stereotype. I mean, I think they play across stereotypes on all fronts, and so that's another argument on your behalf because it's equal opportunity against all stereotypes. Yeah. It's like the lazy white guy, the homemaker. Like they're really stereotypical archetypes.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Well, this Vox article proposed their solution to this. It said the easiest solution to this problem is for The Simpsons to have ended in 2001. Fucking assholes.
Agreed.
These bullshit artists, these opinion pieces, these like little drive-by like hot takes on shit. Oh, really? That's the easiest solution? A time machine, or to have ended this successful franchise that employed hundreds of thousands of people over, merchants who sell their products, the writers, the directors, the producers, the sound people. That's the solution? That's what you think would have made the world a better place, is to end it so we don't fucking step on someone's toes 10 years later with an Apu joke?
Yeah.
You fucking douchebags. Pisses me off so much. Here.
Another thing is, without Apu, is there as many opportunities for Indian Americans to make a push into Hollywood? And I know that sounds silly because he's such a funny character, but maybe something like that is what kept things in people's subconscious in the long run, moving forward with.
A bit of a stretch.
Is it? I stretch a lot.
I do have a theory on how, when you are accepted into American society fully, because we're in a country where America beckons, but Americans repel. All right. And a lot of times, and it happened with different groups, the Irish, the Italians, and now it's happening with new groups. But here's when you're fully accepted. It's when people can do your accent in conversation at a party, and it's not offensive. So I could bust out an English accent, totally cool.
Fascinating.
Do a French accent, fine, no big deal. Chinese accent, it's a little weird. It's a little weird. But once we get to the point where we can, and it's not weird, that's when everybody's been accepted.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that's the West versus the East, though.
You do but same thing like Mexican accent, like Spanish. It's just like, I don't know. It's still kind of weird. Maybe not as weird as it used to be. But there's a point where it goes over a hill, where all of a sudden it's like, I don't know, it's okay now. I don't know when that is. I'm not saying we should do all of a sudden accents all the time, but
I think the intent matters.
German accent? Totally do a German accent.
Intent matters.
Intent matters. You want to talk about East, right? Have you seen any kind of like modern television shows coming out of Korea or China when they try to portray an American?
Oh, man.
First of all, it's usually a Korean
but I would
or
love
Chinese.
to.
Yeah. Sometimes it's just like a Korean guy with blonde hair. So he's the American, right? And then sometimes they just hire whoever fucking expat they have. And you can clearly hear an Australian accent, but they don't give a shit over there. It's Western, okay? They hire an expat to play us. I've heard Canadian expats, I've heard English expats, and they're representing Americans. And it happens all the fucking time. I watched the new Godzilla movie, Shin Godzilla, that came out. And it's fantastic, first of all. But they had this moment in the movie where every country on Earth is trying to solve this problem of Godzilla. Well, America wants to get involved, and they're like, why is America getting involved? They said, well, America is making the case that if Godzilla leaves our shores and crosses the Pacific Ocean, that it's going to attack America. So they want to try to stop the problem. They said, well, we don't want them to. They're like, well, it's too bad. It's America. What can you do? And then they cut to...
Shockingly accurate.
Yeah. And then they cut to a pilot in a B-52 bomber flying above Godzilla. And the pilot looks like... You know that blonde guy from Bad Dudes who said the president has been kidnapped? He has like a buzz cut, like aviator glasses, like the biggest meathead American you can imagine. He goes, bombs away. And he like, he like pulls the buzz.
Then a bomb draped in an American flag pops out.
Yeah. And then they cut back to like this control room with like the Japanese people like anxiously watching. Did it stop Godzilla? This giant nuke that America dropped on Japan fucking again? And everyone's like, no, of course not. America dropped the biggest bomb ever, and it didn't solve any problems. And it was a very poignant commentary on America. And that wasn't, I don't think I took offense to that, but I got the message that they were saying. And I know that this is coming from a prism. I'm getting a ton of hate mail for this from people saying, oh, it's coming from a place of privilege. You haven't been persecuted. You haven't been blah, blah, blah. You haven't been part of a minority. But I have experienced that.
Right, so that's my question. You tell this whole moving story about being called the sand N-word and your experience and not being represented in the media. So why can you not empathize with at least the emotions behind the documentary?
Because I think that it's insincere. Harry Condabalu says here, he tweeted about the responses The Simpsons had. He said, the filmmaker behind the documentary, The Problem with Apu, wrote, wow, politically incorrect? That's the takeaway from my movie and the discussion it sparked? Man, I really loved this show. This is sad. He repeatedly during this documentary talks about how much he loved The Simpsons, how much he enjoyed The Simpsons. So for him to...
I think The Simpsons absolutely validated his argument by responding to it, by the way.
You think they shouldn't have responded to it?
Well, I'm not saying they shouldn't have. I think that they validated that, yes, we understand and we hear you. We're going to continue doing our thing, but we understand that is...
But that's glad handing. That's just to acknowledge something does not mean it's responding to the issue. You know, that's easy, in my opinion.
I do empathize with this guy getting bullied. I do empathize. I see it all the fucking time. My mom was persecuted constantly because she had an accent. Everywhere she went, we were always othered. Everywhere we went. If I had an accent, if anyone even picked up like a hint of an accent on my parents, we weren't American.
What's like an Armenian accent sound like?
The Armenian accent?
Yeah.
I don't have it, but a lot of Armenians do, especially in Glendale. It's like...
get the fuck out of my way.
Yeah,
that's it.
Thank you, Ron.
Like the cast of Jersey Shore?
Gym 10 laundry.
Armenian accent is, listen, bro, let me tell you, bro. And it's very, it's kind of almost like monosyllabic. It's kind of a Slavic language, the Armenian. So when you hear it.
we're going to have one call in next week. I think we have one calling in next week.
An Armenian?
Yeah.
Oh, do we?
We do.
Okay, I'm looking forward to this call.
Yeah.
I don't know how you can predict that, Mikey Bolts.
I don't either.
I did want to say Apu is a naturalized U.S. citizen and holds a Ph.D. in computer science. He graduated first in his class
Stereotypes.
of 7 million at Caltech, Calcutta Technical Institute, going on to earn his doctorate at the Springfield Heights Institute of Technology.
Okay, so is that better or worse that we have a computer scientist who graduated, right, with a PhD, and now he's working in a convenience store? Is that better or worse in this story?
I'm
it's
just giving the
truthful.
information.
I think it's truthful. I mean, that's what you hear a lot is that people come from other countries, you know, the immigrant experience, and they have an expertise and a degree, and it's worthless here. So, you know, that's actually like politically worthy, in my opinion, showing that struggle.
Do you remember during the Emmys a couple of years ago, maybe like 5 years ago, someone made a pointed joke towards Jerry Seinfeld and Larry David that they didn't have any black people on Seinfeld. Mm-hmm. And Jerry kind of responded to that during the Emmys, and he got up on stage and he said something I thought was very poignant. He said, guys, sorry that I was just trying to make a comedy show and wasn't trying to solve racial disparity through my show on a TV show where it's just hard enough to even get it done and make it happen and make a successful show. Sorry, I didn't add this additional layer of expectation that I didn't even know I had at the time.
Right.
So, I mean, I don't know what the solution is to this. It's really easy to talk to bitch and moan about lack of representation and stereotypes, but then no one is offering solutions. What is the solution to this?
Honestly, what I have an issue with are the American Indians who are not kind of really embracing their heritage. Like they're sort of whitewashed, you know, and I just feel like that's a little bit of a disservice. And granted, they're born in America, but it just feels like they're kind of shunning, you know, who they are and where they came from to kind of fit into the larger media spectrum. And that actually does bother me. It feels a little bit strange.
Yeah, but isn't that just their choice? Like,
Yes.
don't they have like if they're like, hey, I don't know if they were born here and maybe their family didn't associate with it as much. Like every generation, like by the fourth generation, they say that any identity you have to the old country is gone. You know, the first generation that comes here, absolutely. But then there's like a law of diminishing returns. And by the fourth, there's nothing else that's there.
But if you're going to have this argument and if they're going to be taking a position in the media or be like a pop culture figure, it's sort of like Spider-Man. With great power comes responsibility. So it's like, are they taking that on or not, or are they choosing not to take it on?
But what's like the specifics? Like, is this the Armenian that you once dated? No.
How was he?
No, it's somebody famous.
Hey, there's a lot of famous Armenians. You're talking to one.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, are you Armenian?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
A little bit. Yeah,
No,
Rucka made a point of that.
One thing that I want to say is that I'm so not politically correct with like comedy and with content. Like, I totally respect and understand what you're saying. All I'm saying is that I've been exposed. I travel a lot, which again sounds very stereotypical, but I've really traveled a lot, and I just feel like the more I learn about these other cultures and their experiences. My experience, which I think is really interesting, I'm Jewish and I'm insecure in a myriad of ways. The one area that I'm not insecure in is being a Jew. And that's because there were so many Jews in entertainment and in pop culture. And like, I was sort of taught like, we're great people, not to the exclusion of everybody else, but that actually has always bolstered my self-esteem based on representation, culture, and, you know, those positions. I mean, it's literally the one area where I feel like super confident and proud. And that's a direct result of, you know, what I was exposed to and the number, you know, the Jews running Hollywood, let's be honest.
And the Greeks.
A question I had, do you think that a long enough period of time, all comedy will become offensive to like larger and larger segments of the populace?
Most, not all. I would say that there is some very tame, shitty humor that probably isn't offensive.
See, I disagree.
You think that all comedy will become offensive?
No. Oh, I don't think all comedy will become offensive.
What is this, a
that's
Black
what I'm
Mirror?
saying.
Is this a Black Mirror episode? How did all comedy become offensive?
I feel
Over time is what Taylor's saying.
know.
Yeah.
I feel like we're at a situation where a lot of people are realizing things that they never realized before, and they're pointing it out. And it's frustrating that they don't have a solution for it.
Well, there is a solution. There's so much more diversity on television now.
But I'm saying like that's okay not to have like
Black
a solution.
Panther.
Like you're allowed to be upset with something and not have a solution.
No.
You know?
Wrong. You are not allowed.
No, because like you're like, well, what are you gonna do about it? And people are like, you know what? We don't fucking know. But this thing, it bothers me a little bit, you know. And people are allowed to say that, and it is fucking annoying. I grant you that, because especially when you're doing it to something that is old, you know, like retrospect. Like I was watching The Quiet Man with my girlfriend. You guys know that movie?
No.
John Wayne. And it's a movie, like it's a great Irish kind of movie. And in it though, he like kind of beats the crap out of his wife at the end. And it's this famous scene where he's like dragging her along. And it's this like family friendly movie that I used to watch with my family every St. Patrick's Day.
Huh.
And we loved it. The Quiet Man, great movie. And I'm sharing this with my girlfriend. I'm like, oh man, we got to watch The Quiet Man. It's the best. And we're watching it. And I'm like,
Yeah.
and she's like, so he just beats her with a stick, huh? And I'm like, well, yeah, but you know, like if we look at old stuff through that lens, like it destroys everything for us.
Molly Ringwald just wrote an article for The New Yorker about The Breakfast Club and looking back at it and how like the scene where, you know, Judd kind of is like under the table and sort of like is basically harassing her, and just how she was trying to show the movie to her daughter and just has a different point of view. And then when you look at 16 Candles, was 100% like drug and date rape, as well as Long Duck Dong, like the most racist representation. But, you know, does that mean that like I won't consider it like one of my, you know, favorite memories? It's like we just have a different perspective now.
It's like you grow out of something.
Yeah.
It's okay. You enjoy it for what it is, and you grow out of it, and then you do better in the future.
And then 2018 happens, and then you're kind of stuck with it again.
Because there's some shit.
People bring it up.
There's some shit we're doing right now that people are going to be super offended by in 20 years. For as like woke
100%.
and aware that we are right now, in 20 years, people are going to be like, I just can't believe we ever portrayed, you know, and then insert group. But I like to think that we're going to, at some point, I don't know.
See, I thought about that with horses and monkeys and stuff. Is in millions of years from now, they're going to be talking.
I can't believe they
rode
rode around horses.
Is
historical
Apu more offensive than Cleveland on Family Guy?
Oh, interesting. So, well, Cleveland's also voiced
By a white man.
Is it Seth MacFarlane who voices Cleveland?
No, it's someone else. I can look it up.
Okay, again, so here's the thing. The problem with racism, okay, let's talk about the problem with racism, is that you are judging someone not based on the content of their character or the quality of their person, right? But the color of their skin. That's the problem with racism. And when you try to include diversity, just by having someone a person of color, you were doing the exact same thing as someone who's racist, except you're trying to do something positive and they're trying to do something negative. Racist people try to hurt people and divide us by skin color. And people who are trying to, push this mantle, this like philosophy of inclusion are doing the exact same thing, which I have a problem with. I think that it is judging someone by their skin color. We had a guest on not too long ago, a couple episodes ago. His name is Federico Pistono, a brilliant guy. And he talked about the genetics of race and our genes. And he said within a certain group, say black people, you could take 1,000 black people, and within that group of people, there could be 2 black people who are more genetically diverse than you and a black person, because the part of our genome, our genetic code that defines our skin color, is tiny and insignificant compared to the rest of the genetics that make us up. So we are still backwards, I think, by trying to push this mantle of diversity and then like really focusing on this stuff. I think the problem with
do you think like celebrating diversity is what's causing diversity? Is that what you're kind of saying?
I think so, absolutely. I think it's the same. It's two sides of the same coin, and I think that one has positive intentions, one has negative intentions, but you're still judging people based on their skin color.
And I feel weird even talking about race, like as like a straight white male dude. I feel like there's been enough of us talking, so a lot of times I kind of just like, man, like at work, if people start talking about stuff, I just kind of shut the fuck up because I'm just afraid of saying something and then people being like, oh. And then I'm like, oh, fuck.
I hate that. I hate that. I
just don't want to trip in front of anybody. You know what I mean?
Exactly. People are afraid to even have this conversation because everyone, like, their buttholes kind of clench up and they're afraid to say something wrong.
My butthole is so tight right now.
Well, this guy, Harry Kanabalu, I want to say his name right, Kanabalu, Hari. I got his last name misses for Hari Kanabalu.
Any Harry Candy Crush over here.
So Hari, the problem that he has, really, if you listen to the subtext here, I mean, he does say it out loud too, which is the
if you
bigotry.
Listen to both the subtext and the actual
if you
text.
can get through that accent, you look into his eyes.
Lisa Elvin.
Okay, so what he's really saying?
What he's really saying is he has a problem with bigotry, and we all do. Of course, you don't want people to stereotype. You don't want people to say thank you, come again. It's disrespectful. It's offensive because you are stereotyping somebody, a real human being. And he kind of had this joke. The whole series kind of starts out where he's talking about how someone came up to him and said that one of his jokes wasn't that funny or something like that. And he goes, well, why couldn't this man have had the courtesy of saying that on Twitter? Why did he have to do it to me in real time? And then just as he's finishing that up, someone in the audience, a heckler, yells, thank you, come again. And that's what set him off. And he kind of like went down this path to make this documentary. I get it. That's offensive. You're just diminishing and reducing somebody to a stereotypical character. That's offensive.
Okay, so we were talking about Carl
Pilkington.
Are we making fun of stupid people by laughing at him?
Yes. And we're making fun of Bart by making Bart's kind of a dumbass.
How is that making fun of them? They're a cartoon character.
Exactly, but he represents some segment of our society. Most sitcoms, the conceit is you're making fun of people who don't get something, right? They're a little bit dumb. They're a little bit slow. They miss something, right?
If they're not put to that elevated, different character, like they have to be put to a place where they're not everyday people or just elevated versions of those things. Because if they're not, then like my dad wasn't a huge fan of The Office, like Steve Carell, and it's my favorite show, and he didn't understand why Steve Carell was running such a crazy office. He's like, no, an office would never be run that way. You'd never get anything done. What kind of paper mill products? But I'm like, Dad, that's why it's funny.
Yeah.
And that's what I think with characters is, yeah, they can go over the top, but they can also provide so much more. It's what makes that character a character and not just a stand-in. That's my opinion. I don't know.
What were you gonna say, Ron or Taylor?
I would just like to hear the response. Like, how do you design characters?
Oh, well, first of all, I don't think I really design characters, but I'm very interested in comedic stories that haven't been told before. So you're going to actually have a guest on soon who is a performer who's in a wheelchair, and I have a project that is a character-driven comedy that features 3 people with disabilities, because it's something that I just am really interested in, because I had felt really uncomfortable around somebody in a wheelchair, just because I didn't know anybody in a wheelchair. And I've talked to Santina about that at length. There was a fabulous campaign in the UK called End the Awkward, because it's very much human nature to sort of not know how to interact with somebody who you're not accustomed to being around. Mm-hmm. So to me, the whole thing with this, the problem with Apu is not about what can the Simpsons do to course correct, but just having awareness that there are more dimensional characters or more dimensional Indian characters to portray, whether they're good guys, bad guys, that there's more dimensions to them. But it's not about how do we change the Simpsons. It's just, oh, I didn't think about that before, and that's interesting, and maybe I would be interested in learning a story about an Indian American that wasn't relegated to just running a convenience store, I'm
wondering, Maddox, if so you're kind of saying like race shouldn't matter, you know? But I think what Hari is saying is that in our society today, race does matter. So you're looking through a prism of the world that you want to look through. Yeah. And he's looking through a prism of what the world is actually looking through. Because we're not all operating at Maddox level. Like you're using like 60% of your brain, and we're down here using like maybe a solid 9%.
No one is at Maddox's level.
Correct. Thank you, Taylor.
I mean,
well,
you're
he's Armenian.
Yeah,
they're very smart people.
He's a super Armenian.
That's true. That's a true stereotype.
Yeah.
So it's an is-ought argument. So what is the world versus what the world ought to be? Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I think Hari, I'll probably have an Indian.
I really wanted you to start that sentence with, listen, let me tell you about all these dumb motherfuckers.
I think Hari's problem really isn't with The Simpsons. It's with people. It's with how people have bastardized it and ruined it.
Well, it's just because that guy who went, thank you, come again. Like, it's like, you ruined it, man. You ruined it. Like, because like The Simpsons, I think, it's a show written by people who graduated from Harvard. They're all very smart people who write it. And they were kind of operating at a high level, and they wanted to put like some satire in, and some people get it, and other people just kind of see like, oh, the stereotypical Indian character. And then they just go, thank you, come again when they see an Indian person. And you're kind of like, oh, great, dude, you ruined it. We can't have nice things.
It's interesting because whatever the clip that you played where Hari said, nobody was thinking about the satire in regards to stupid white people, whatever Apu had responded to them, that there was some satire along that. They were just thinking about Apu being stupid. But there is some subtlety to it. It's a sophisticated, subtle comedy,
exactly.
And so that's, again, it's more just about, well, their experience growing up was that people only saw the stupid, and that's affected his entire life.
Okay, the problem is with this this whole argument of representation is, let's take for example the Oscars So White movement, right? Where I think that what happens in Hollywood is they will overcorrect. And they will go like the year before there was Oscars So White, and then the next year it's like, well, let's make a movie with 3 black female scientists, and then let's give them an award, and they did, and then it's like, okay, did we solve the problem? No, fucking Hollywood, you're still the same dipshit, you're still the same bigots. You guys are just trying to pat yourselves on the back for something that you guys acknowledged that you were doing something shitty, and then you invented a fucking solution that you guys have then just invented an award to give. You guys are just jerking yourselves off. What?
No, they can never do anything right. You're like, hey, this is kind of fucked up. Okay, well, let's try this. Oh, fuck you, it's not sincere enough. It's like they can never do anything right with that.
But I'll tell you. Okay, so this representation.
And I agree. Hidden Figures, I didn't think was that good. But go ahead.
I never even saw it. But I'll tell you what. They were like, we need more representation. I looked up the statistics. How many black people, like actors, producers, writers, directors, had received Oscars up to that point? And it was about 15%. Well, guess what? Black people make up 13% of the population. That is representative. What? I don't understand, like, why we're tripping over ourselves, because I think what's going to happen is you're going to have overcorrection. You're going to have a bunch of white taxi cab drivers, because people are like, well, let's not stereotype. And you're going to have a bunch of...
Maddox, you're on a roll right now. I don't know. I think we should unravel this one.
Honestly, this is, as a producer, this is going to sound strange, but being in the minority business is big business. Like, part of what I've been doing is focusing on Latino performers, Latino writer and directors, because as proven by Black like Black Panther and other movies, there is a huge market. There are voracious consumers of content across all platforms, the Latino population and the African American population. And
Lisa,
okay, yeah,
as an Irish Catholic Slovak, how am I looking?
You're fine by me.
In the minority business.
Oh, you're not looking good in the minority business. No.
How many Irish Catholic Slovaks do you know?
Yeah. Well,
God damn it. I'm sorry.
You've got the American accent. Yeah. Exactly. So yeah, I do think that there really is a big market and I don't know the statistic. That seems.
It's 13% of the population is black. And the Oscars, I think they have gone to black performers or black people in the industry about 15% of the time. So it is in line with their,
but out of the
scary argument,
out of the 100% white Americans that are in America, how many are actually in the industry though? Because you said, right? Like you said,
that's a good point.
It goes across the board. It goes across. So for example, how many fucking Oscars have gone to Asians? Period. I see, and they make up a much larger segment of our society. So you're not seeing, this representation. It's just we're still focused. We have this laser focus on the pigment in our skin. It's like, well, let's give it to a black guy. It's like, well, what do you know about that black guy? What can you tell me about somebody just based on his skin color?
Okay, well, there's one thing that I want to bring up that when I worked in features, I read Harold and Kumar Go to White Castle as a spec script.
Yeah.
And I brought it to Sony, and they were like, I don't remember. I don't want to say that Sony said it, but I just remember hearing, and it was kind of widespread across Hollywood at that point, nobody's going to make this movie because it's an Indian and an Asian in the leads. Like, I mean, it was literally just like, that's not going to be a viable movie. And John and Hayden, the writers, they just wrote that. I mean, they'll talk about it to this day. They just wrote that from experience. Like, those are the guys that they partied with at Penn, and they just thought it was hilarious. So they did know that experience, and they did want it represented, and they did think that those characters were funny, and they were authentic to people they really know. So that was just a great example of like breaking down stereotypes or playing them up. But, there's truth to it, and it's a comedy, but it was just a great film and a great franchise based on two white guys wanting to show different points of view, not because they're politically correct, just because they think it's funny.
It was very funny. It was a very good movie. But there was even in that movie, there were some racial stereotypes. Like there was a part where I think Kumar was looking for Harold, and he was running around in this dorm or something, and he stopped someone and he goes, "Hey, I'm looking for this Asian guy who's running around here. He's an Asian engineer." He goes, "Have you seen him?" He goes, "Yeah, I see an Asian engineer only when I open my eyes."
Yeah.
Like that was.
Well, there
yeah,
you
that's
see
funny.
It was very funny.
But it's cool because it's funny. Like, again, it comes from a place of truth, and that's the fine line with comedy. It's just that the intention behind the movie they made, it was rooted in truth. I'm totally with you about like this kind of patting yourselves on the back BS, Hollywood backlash. But sometimes the end does justify the means.
Well, so this the guy from that movie, the Indian guy, was his name Kal Penn?
Yeah.
Is that who it is? Kal Penn was in this documentary, Hari's documentary, and he hates the Apu character. He said that growing up, he says he hates The Simpsons specifically because of that character.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, Kal Penn has a huge problem with it. So I'm not going to minimize the Indian American experience.
That's an interesting perspective because as a kid, I'm sure he entertained his family and friends and wanted to become an actor, and then thought about himself, identified with him, and that's what he saw was working at the time. And some people think it was paving the way for, cartoons. But yeah.
I have a very simple test, a very simple racism test. I like to show people two stock photos. One is all white people. The other one is white, black, Latino, Asian. I ask them, which is more diverse? There is no right answer. Because if you say anything, you're wrong. You can't, because you are judging someone based on the color of their skin, based on their ethnicity.
It's not a judgment. Diversity. What's the definition of diversity?
Yeah, it's like there's more difference in this photo than this photo.
No, the definition of diversity.
The definition of diversity, the state of being diverse, variety, a range of different things.
A range of different things. But let's look at Martin Luther King's statement that we should judge someone not by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. So at a glance, you cannot say anything about the content of someone's character at a glance just because their skin is black or because they're Asian. You don't know what their lives are like. You don't know what path they took in life. You can make assumptions, but those assumptions are based on stereotypes. So if you look at that picture of two stock photos and it's all white people and one with a bunch of mixed races, you can say nothing about those people because you don't know them. And that's what Martin Luther King was saying. And I think that's what's important to not forget, is that we need to learn about people, not just judge them by their skin color, good or bad. I don't want to hire someone for any reason other than their qualifications. And if I get a job, by the way, I don't want anything for my ethnicity. If I get a job, I want to know.
You won't get anything for Armenian.
I know.
You don't have to worry about that.
Thank you, Ron.
No one ever goes, oh, bring us the Armenian.
No one gives a shit about us. But if I get a job, I want to know that it was because of me.
Maybe
and my
if it was like a
qualifications.
falafel salesman, then it'd be Armenian. But other than that.
Thin ice there, Ron.
I understand where you're coming from. I really do. Yeah. And I think it's so admirable. But I do think that
it's not admirable.
It is admirable,
no,
Lisa.
Because he's trying to look at the future. And I get what you're saying, that we should all get to know people individually and how the characters that they are. But like, dude, culture, skin color, it affects it. People are different, and I think it's okay to have different people represented in movies and TV shows and to showcase their perspectives. And yes, in the beginning, it may be awkward, it may be forced, it may feel
correct,
like insincere. But in the long run, like that's where you start. Like for first time you try and do anything, you're bad at it. You know, the first time you try to play basketball, you're shitty at it. The first time Hollywood is trying to actually promote diversity, yeah, it's going to be insincere. It's going to be awkward. So we're just taking the first baby steps now. You got to give it time before
It does need time.
Thank you, Mikey.
Thank you, Mikey.
Mikey, very reasonable man. I'll say this though. Okay, let's step outside of Hollywood, because Hollywood is fucked.
Yes.
Let's look at YouTube and let's look at new media, because there is no gatekeeper, and anyone can represent themselves however they want.
Which is the thing I love about YouTube.
Me too.
Also,
I
remember watching like big YouTube stars and some of their videos, and I remember thinking like, this is the most racist shit I have ever seen.
But you're talking about seeing like someone who's an African American, or like that they're playing into the stereotype.
I just remember seeing like some white guy pretended like he was like a black guy or a black woman ordering something from McDonald's, and it had like millions of views, and I was like, I don't know what I'm doing as a comedian. I'm sorry to cut you off, Matt.
There's definitely no moderator in there dancing the line of free speech, and it's very clear. And you said a statistic a few episodes ago of how much content is being uploaded at any given time to upload or to YouTube.
Yeah,
it's just more and more, and there's no one regulating it. And when they think that you have a strike on your account or a video, you go through an automated service, no matter how big your channel is, and it's frustrating. So right now, I don't feel comfortable uploading anything.
Well, I mean, that's a problem with the platform itself. But back to like the representation argument, right? On YouTube, whatever. There is no gatekeeper. Anyone can put out anything they want, represent themselves however they want. So all these people who are complaining about the media that's not representing them, make the media that you want to represent you. If you want your race or identity represented, why not just make it? And there's a few of them who already are.
That. Yeah, I mean, everyone in that movie is literally doing that. But you can do both things. It's not an either or issue. You can only make media or critique media. Like, they're obviously doing both things.
Look, I have another very simple test.
Okay.
Here we go.
for anything like this, okay? Is their intent to make you laugh? If it is, then cut them a little bit of slack. At worst, they are guilty of not being funny.
I actually, I kind of agree with that.
Yes, we finally have some middle ground.
I do feel like when people see something, I wish, and this just goes in life, if somebody at work says something to you that really hurts you, or even your girlfriend, I wish you would just think and be like, what intent did they have when they say that? Was their intention to really hurt you?
Yeah.
Because I really think that a lot of times people get angry, and I think if you look at their intent, yeah, it came out wrong, but the intention was not to make you feel bad.
Right.
And I think I wish we paid a little bit more attention to that. And
the other thing is, there should be a grandfather clause, literally, where where our grandfathers are mostly racist, and where like any show that's been on the air for more than like 20 years, guys, culture changes, shit changes. Even myself, like I've gone back and read things that I wrote when I was 16 years old. Guys, it's been over 2 decades. Sometimes your opinions change. Sometimes you shift with culture. I've told this on the podcast in the past, but I used to be homophobic, literally in the sense that I was afraid of homosexuals because I grew up in a conservative state where people constantly beat you over the head and said, hey, look out, there's AIDS, there's all these like diseases and all these things, and they'll turn you gay. I didn't understand what it even meant.
Right, so exposed through media and through pop culture and getting to know
various penises.
Yes, or homosexual characters. You know,
I actually learned. I actually overcame that one night. I was talking on a bulletin board system, a BBS, but this like preceded the internet, and I was talking to
about BBC on the BBS.
Oh no!
How about the BDS movement, Natalie Portman?
BBWs.
Go ahead.
There was no BBC or BDS on this BBC, but there was a gay man, and I asked, and I've told the story before, but I'll say it real quick. I found out he was gay, and I thought, oh my God, my parents would kill me if they knew I was like downstairs talking to a gay man, this gay guy on the internet. And my first question to him was, "Why are you gay?" And he responded to me with another question. He said, "Why are you straight?" And I thought about it, and I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, did you choose to be straight? I'm like, no. It's like, I've never thought about it before.
Amazing story.
Yeah, I've never thought about it before. And it was that one question that got me down the path. I'm like, yeah, why am I straight?
Do you know, like, I love those moments where you get blown away by stuff.
Yeah.
The one that happened to me was I was like shooting a sketch with some friends, and my friend was, she's a single woman, and she was on Tinder, and she was like giggling at her phone. I went, "What are you looking at?" And she went, "Oh, I'm just looking at all the dick pics that I get sent on Tinder." And I was like, "What?" And I expected to see like 2, 3, maybe 6 tops. She turned her phone towards me and just started going. And she's like, "This is what I got this week." There were like literally 30 to 40 dick pics. And I knew
She saved them?
Yeah, because she was like, we looked at them together, and it was fucking hilarious. Just the stuff that guys send out, where I don't think they look at many other dicks when they're seeing this dick, and they're like, "This is a tight
There's no dick quality control.
No, it was an awful dick. I was like, wow, I wish I had the same confidence
Yeah.
in myself that you do in your dick. But I just never knew the onslaught of it. I never realized it was that much.
So I actually have experience in it too. I used to be for lack of a better way of saying it, Snapchat celebrity. I was one of the, at a time, one of the biggest Snapchatters in the world.
Look at you.
And I was inundated with hundreds of dick pics per week. And it wasn't just dick pics. The things that would get very graphic were videos. And I don't want to get detailed, but
dick videos.
And
flopping
it was
around
weird
and
that
stuff,
they were able
smacking
to,
them on their knees.
It was weird that they were able to hold the phone while doing these disgusting acts. Like, that was the impressive part.
That is impressive.
Yeah, that has been very impressive.
I blocked all of them, obviously. But I didn't save the pictures. That's weird.
Well, guys, very enlightening conversation about race on this show.
And what I'm really excited about is that we solved it.
Yes.
We solved it. Yay. Yeah, there you go.
More stories we haven't heard in media is a good thing. Fake, inauthentic Hollywood people patting themselves on the back, bad thing.
But it might be part of the process
to the
that's
end.
necessary in the long run. / we should all look beyond race.
Okay.
And am I missing anything?
Yeah, I will just say this: whatever sells, make that story. If people make a story and they're saying, "Well, we should have this story told," and no one gives a shit about that story, sorry. Try again. Make a story that people give a shit about. Because guess what? At the end of the day, it's show business. You got to make money.
Black
Oh my
Panther,
God.
perfect
Black Panther-
example.
Great, because
Yeah.
it was like, I think the first big black superhero movie,
Yeah.
other than Blade. Well, there's a bunch. No, there's actually
there's a lot.
tweet about this. Yeah, there's been a bunch, but it was the first big Marvel
Yeah.
black superhero movie. Yeah, and it did well.
It did well. It's about
broke all the records.
It's about to surpass Titanic.
It already did. It's the number one
Right.
grossing movie of all time, I think.
Yeah, I mean that's a huge
I guess
statement.
that's okay.
It's a Marvel movie. That's insane. All right, guys. Well, don't forget to vote on this debate at madcastmedia.com. I want
I'm
to hear.
looking forward
Yeah,
to
it's
seeing
gonna be
what
a little
people have to
scary.
say.
Oh, we're gonna get I'm gonna get my ass
Yes,
blasted
you are.
next episode. I know. Well, guys, we should talk about the debate from last week. Lisa, last week we debated what's the best way to punish a child. Do you have anything off the top of your head?
I mean, off the top of my head, the good old-fashioned timeout.
Timeout?
Mhm.
Well, we asked the audience what the best way was. We have 4 different solutions, right, that we
Okay.
pitched last week. And coming in dead last with 9% of the vote, timeout.
Whoa.
Guess I need a timeout.
Yeah. Followed by hit them. That was a number of us.
Well, that's because you were pushing it.
I was pushing it. But then I did have a different one. My actual solution is let them suffer, which is let them do bad things and let them just suffer.
Yep.
And learn from their own mistakes. But the number one solution, by far, 94% of the vote,
Whoa.
was give them a choice with consequences.
Oh,
That was
who
Ron.
said that?
Ron
Who said that?
Babcock.
As someone
Yeah.
who doesn't have any kids, I have a lot of opinions about how to raise children. And
Yeah.
it turns out that I'm right.
He's
Yeah.
a great uncle too.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ron is a great uncle.
I like it when they call me Unky Ron because of the episode on The Simpsons where they had Unky Herb.
Oh,
Remember Homer's
Great
brother
episode.
when it's like Uncle Herb and he's like, "Call me Unky Herb."
I don't remember anything that's not a stereotype.
Yeah.
I have one quick question.
Yeah.
So what happens about South Park? Is South Park not on the radar for any of
Good
this? Because that
question.
sounds very, very specific to. Is it because a public station with Fox?
Yeah, I don't know. This South Park, I mean, they did mention South Park in this as well with some of the stereotypes they've had on that show, but they kind of get a free pass with this
Because
satire
they just
because
do everything.
they do everything.
I think it's because they don't give a fuck, and there's still like big wigs ahead of the Fox stuff, and I think it's up to Trey and Matt with South Park to do what they want to do. They're like, throw us out if you really want, but I think. Yeah, maybe they're just held to
They'll
a different.
just go off and do something else that's wildly successful and
Yeah.
entertaining.
I think Taylor was right that The Simpsons, I don't think they should have even responded to this controversy. They
Yeah.
could have just said,
Oh,
okay,
I
guys,
didn't say that. I said just responding was validation.
I also think
Okay.
Taylor was right that they shouldn't have responded to this
I
controversy.
think Maddox is
Yeah.
right.
Taylor
that
definitely
saying
think-
I'm right.
Taylor is correct in saying I'm right. So let's get to some voicemail. I got a ton of voicemail. We should get to this. Here's the first one. It's from the Bad Hombre.
Hey,
Yeah, longtime caller and listener of the show wanted to make a correction about Illinois. Listen to this.
All right, pendejo, this is the second time you've done this. As a resident of the city of Chicago in the state of Illinois, you don't pronounce the fucking S at the end of Illinois.
You just pronounced the S.
Fuck, they teach this shit in like second fucking grade. Holy shit, man. Fuck. Why don't you go tell your friend in Arkansas if he's pronouncing that name right, dipshit.
Excellent call.
Yeah, it's our favorite. Yeah, we
he's
get
got a point.
one of our favorite callers, the Bad Hombre. Yeah, okay, Illinois, got it. So, and then last week I talked about in Jurassic World, my favorite moment in that whole thing. It was at the beginning when the dinosaurs first started attacking. There's a guy that takes 2 margaritas and he's running away with them, and it's hilarious. It's the best. So I didn't know this, but here's a caller pointing out who that actually was. Listen to this. Yeah.
Hey there, Maddox. First-time caller, long-time listener and reader. Listen to the podcast, and you mentioned something about an individual in Jurassic World wearing a Hawaiian shirt and some margaritas. That was actually a Jimmy Buffett cameo, it turns out.
No.
My buddy and I saw that. We were like, wow, that's a lot like Jimmy Buffett. And we looked it up, and it was right there in the credits. Yeah, it's Jimmy Buffett cameoing in Jurassic World as some guy. But just wanted to call and let you know.
That's great.
Fuck
Isn't
whales.
that amazing?
That is
We should
was
have
actually-
more helpful voicemails like that.
Yeah.
You
that was
actually
great.
got comments saying that on YouTube as well.
Yeah, a lot of people pointing that out. But I didn't know that. That's amazing. And he was the best part of the movie. That one scene. I saw, Lisa, in West Hollywood, they have this, the Halloween parade, for those of you who don't know, where a lot of people dress up. I saw a guy dressed up as Jimmy Buffett from
my
Jurassic
God.
World carrying 2 margaritas.
That's awesome.
Hilarious. It was my
Yeah.
favorite costume.
Yeah.
We also debated the trolley problem a couple episodes ago. Now, you're familiar with the trolley problem?
No.
The modern version is if an automated car, a self-driving car,
Yes.
has to make a choice between hitting a group of pedestrians
yes,
versus
I
one.
know this.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, this guy has a solution to that.
All
problem.
right.
Yeah, listen to this.
Maddox, there's a very obvious solution to both the trolley problem and the self-driving car problem. With self-driving cars, you just plow through the crowd of people, then drive off the cliff. You guys kept talking about fairness, and the only fair thing is to kill everyone.
I think that's appropriate.
Isn't that the best solution?
It
I
is.
should run for mayor.
It
yeah.
is.
Kill the group.
Kill them all, baby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The car should be smart enough to scan and see if anyone's still alive, like any life signs,
Yeah.
and like backs up over and then drives you off the cliff like a bandit trying to get away.
Yeah. Honorable.
Yeah, great solution. I like that a lot. Weird Matthew McConaughey called in, longtime listener and caller of the show. We talked a couple episodes ago about how progressive the Pope is, and then we got callers calling in because I said people are shitting on this Pope for not being progressive enough and not solving every problem. I'm like, are you fucking kidding
He's
me?
a dream pope.
Yeah, he's a dream Pope. He's the dope Pope, as Mikey
Yes.
says.
Dope Pope,
Yeah.
the one and only.
He's the dope Pope. And then
Yeah.
I said, there's a bunch of people who hate him, and there was a controversy, people back and
A
forth.
lot
They're
of
like,
people
who?
can't cope with the dope pope.
Ron Babcock. There you go. So we got a caller. Weird Matthew McConaughey wanted to comment about the dope Pope and who hates him. Listen to this.
You know who doesn't like the Pope? Anybody who doesn't like to support or belong to a group or an organization. It just covers up pedophilia. Just whoop, 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 whoop. If Ford did that, if the CEO of Ford, not even just the CEO, if many members of Ford did that, would you still be buying Fords? No.
Yeah, shitty. Nice try, Weird Matthew, but actually the president of Ford was a huge bigot. He was like a huge...
Oh, yes.
Well, he got
Renowned.
the... Henry Ford got that award from Hitler, like our Congressional Medal of Honor.
Yeah.
He got like the highest ranking thing you could from Nazi Germany. Like one of 3 people got it. Henry Ford was one of them.
Yeah, he was a huge bigot. So yeah, that answers your question, Weird Matthew.
He just looked at Hitler and he's like, that guy's got some good ideas.
Yeah. You know what? If you've ever been in a Ford Taurus, you know that was made by a bigot. Those things are such shit cars.
Dude, I remember I had a Ford Contour.
Yeah.
Oh, Jesus, what a piece of shit car.
Shitty cars.
Also the name of the car.
And Ford
What do we name it?
Explorers.
But the shape, Contour.
Yeah.
How many fucking Ford Contours have you seen on the road?
0.
That's how you know that Ford in the 90s were shitty cars, because none of them are still on the road.
No.
1993 Toyota Corolla?
Oh, it's
still on the
everywhere.
road.
I see them all the time. But you
They
never
will
see
never
any,
die.
You never, you never see any Fords
When
from the
was the
90s.
last time a friend of yours rolled up in a Ford Tempo?
Yeah, or a Dodge Neon. Remember the Neons?
Oh
dude?
my God, yeah.
Disappeared. Yeah, it's a lot of crappy cars. Well, we got another voicemail about the Pope. Talking about the Pope haters. Listen to this.
Dope Pope.
Hey, Maddox. I'm just calling in to, respond to Numbnuts who called in last week saying that there's no group that specifically hates the Pope. Well, a church I used to go to really did hate the Pope. I don't know why. I think they thought he was Jewish or something. Not that there's anything wrong with Jews. I don't personally believe. It's like I don't associate with them anymore, But, they weren't super into him. I just thought that he should know that he's wrong. Oh, hi, Tim.
You guys hang out on the weekends? You guys, what do you do?
Yeah, this guy in the. So is that Jews don't have a problem with the Pope, do they? I'm asking you as an official representative.
No problem.
Of Jews.
No, not to my knowledge.
Yeah.
No.
You guys better back the fuck up if you do.
Yeah.
No.
Back it up, because this Pope is the dope Pope.
Yeah. No, we're all a fan of this.
Don't
Pope.
need a cope.
Yeah.
Nope. We got another. So last week we talked about disciplining your kids.
Yeah.
Here's a guy. Here's this guy's solution to. I think I know how this guy voted. I'm not sure. You guys tell me if you guys can figure out how he voted.
All right, so growing up, my brothers and I were a bunch of little fuckers. And my mom and dad, especially my dad, would whoop the living shit out of us, okay? And we're from a family of lumberjacks. So my dad would go to their fucking sawmill and make inch-thick paddles with holes drilled in it for aerodynamics. And he really got a kick out of using those fuckers, all right? And now, myself and my brothers, we're all upstanding, law-abiding citizens, and all my aunts and uncles who refuse to spank their fucking kids. Now all my cousins and everything, they're all a bunch of fucking bums. They're fucking either in jail or on drugs, don't have jobs, and that's I'm telling you, man, spank your fucking kids. They need it, little fuckers, little bastards. Whoop their asses.
He's honest.
I don't know about whooping.
Yeah, you got to whoop that ass.
Jesus.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that call.
Yeah.
I think he voted to hit your kids. Taylor, we got a call.
Seems more of a timeout guy to me. But
That guy,
okay.
the
Yeah,
timeout guy.
yeah, yeah.
I love that his dad made a paddle because he's swinging that thing so hard he needs to put holes in it for aerodynamics.
That was in the King of the Hill episode.
Oh, was it really?
Yeah.
We used to have our principal in grade school. Like, I remember he had a paddle, and you have to get sent to the principal. He never did paddle anybody. It was always just a huge threat. But like, I remember you'd go into his office, and there'd be a paddle right on his desk.
Just
And
a
that
quick
was the thing.
reminder. Just a little reminder.
It was like straight up corporal punishment. So
Yeah.
that was still around when I was a kid. I don't know. I don't think you could do that now.
Yeah.
No. I mean,
No.
maybe in some private schools.
God, what it would be like to be in a
Homeschools.
family of lumberjacks.
Fucking awesome, probably.
Yeah.
Probably wake up every day just like hairy as shit. They just
Pancakes,
have to,
lots of pancakes.
Yeah, pancakes. They have to shave their eyes before they can see in the morning.
Yeah, they
so
just drink syrup.
Yeah, fucking badass.
At least they have a routine. That's kind of nice.
That is nice.
It's better than what I got going on right now.
No, poor Mikey with no routine.
Mikey has no trees to
figure
cut
it out.
down.
Yeah.
31 states have now banned corporal punishment.
That's it?
So only 31 states.
Fuck, we got to move to a better state. That doesn't have, that
19
still
states still allow. Wait, does 19 plus 31 equal 50?
Either way, we still have some work to do.
Math.
Mm-hmm. Well, we got another voicemail. Taylor, about you. Listen to this.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, listen to this guy.
Hey, can you give Taylor a goddamn promotion already? Like, he's such a suck up. He's just like, Maddox, your dick is so big. Maddox, your dick is so girthy. I love you so much. Maddox, you're the best. You're the best. He's like, he doesn't think for himself. Just give him the promotion already so he can just shut up. Anyways, my shirt is an extra large. I'm in Boston.
Okay, you're not getting the shirt.
I don't like how he was speaking ill of you. There.
Yeah. Well,
that was inappropriate, disrespectful to you, and you will make any decisions that you want without having to be guided by people who are going to be disrespectful to you.
Shut the fuck up, Taylor. So that sounds like you're buttering me up more for a promotion. So you know what? I'm going to leave it up to the audience. You guys can vote on the website, madcastmedia.com, on whether or not Taylor gets a promotion, and your vote will be binding next week.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we'll see. Because he's junior journalist now.
Okay.
He may get a promotion. We'll see. And Ron is deputy cadet moderator.
Deputy cadet moderator.
That's right.
Yeah.
And he's the Sultan of Swag, Mikey Bolts.
Quick question.
Yeah.
Is there I know that there's promotions and demotions with these awards
Yes.
that we should really hang up somewhere, but there's so many other faces here if you're
so
watching
many.
this on video. But I was wondering, is there any way to change the content of the award itself? Like if I'm not feeling swaggy anymore.
Oh, if you're not feeling, no, it's entirely up to either me
You.
or, in the occasion that I leave it up to the audience vote,
Got it.
they can decide.
Now,
yes.
is Sultan of Swag, is that because Mikey is also Armenian?
I'm
No.
Greek and loved Aladdin, so I think that it's one of of things.
We're the Armenians and Greeks are brothers.
Yeah.
Basically, we're ethnic brothers. That's what we are. Yeah, we fist bump for days.
Yep.
That's
Yep.
all
We'll
over the place.
leave it at that.
Here's another voicemail. So we talked about a little bit about Martha Stewart and how she went to jail, celebrities who went to jail, and when she got out, she had a very funny anecdote. Listen to this.
Hey, Lord Maddox, it's me. I don't know if you've ever seen the clip of Martha Stewart in jail, and they asked her, is there anything you miss about the outside world? What's the thing you miss the most? And she said lemons. And then it was like 2 or 3 seconds afterwards, she's like, oh, fuck. And she's like, and my family, which is one of the best things you could ever say as a celebrity in jail. Fuck whales.
I forget the comedian who said it, but they asked him, what celebrity would you have sex with if you could have sex with anybody? And he said, Martha Stewart.
Yeah.
And
It was Snoop
like,
Dogg.
It was like, why? And it's like, I don't know how the sex would be, but the breakfast afterwards would be fucking awesome.
That'd be worth it. Even if the sex was mediocre, I'd still do it.
Oh, just to see how she her bed must be amazing.
Oh yeah,
It's true.
she's probably
still
like
amazing.
You know what though? She's probably like too nervous to let loose in the sack.
I disagree. I bet you
yeah?
she is fucking insane.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Hmm.
I also think Martha
She's
Stewart
also been in
is-
prison, so that might have given her a little bit more of an edge.
I think she's a good-looking lady too.
Yeah.
She is a great-looking lady and had a Tempur-Pedic pillow, I'm sure, in her cell. And I think she's pampered and would take care of all of us.
I would make a mess of her bed.
I'm gonna destroy this
I'm gonna
bed.
destroy her bed. I just want to just ruin all her doilies.
You're like
and
just
pillows.
taking a drink of water. You're gonna have
Martha
to burn the sheets.
Yeah.
She's 76.
Hey,
She looks
Not
amazing.
too bad. Yeah, not too
Yeah.
bad. All right. Well, here's another voicemail. So I talked about self-driving cars, smart cars, things like that, and how this technology could be in elevators at some point. Listen to this.
Maddox, what the hell do elevators have to do with the self-driving car debate? Maddox, elevators are already self-driving. You push a button, it goes up. You don't have to drive it, make sure it goes all the way up. God, you're fucking dipshit.
Yeah, well, tell you what, dipshit, I'll tell you exactly what it has to do with this debate. There's already companies that are proposing smart elevators that do facial recognition. So if somebody comes into a building and is shooting up the building, right, and it recognizes that person from a previous floor, or the security guard, whatever, you can lock that elevator door with that person in the elevator. Now, the question then becomes another ethical one. If there's a shooter who enters an elevator, right? This is a scenario I came up with. If a shooter enters an elevator and there's another person, an innocent person in that elevator, do you keep the shooter locked in the elevator with that person, knowing that the shooter might kill that innocent person, or do you let the elevator door open and let the shooter into the floor where it could kill very many more people?
How well do you know the person on the other side of that door?
You don't know them very well. They're just another coworker.
You just walk by. Have you ever had a good conversation with them?
Just casual. Like, hey, how's it going? Weather, that sort of thing.
I'd be rough on the fence with it. 60-40 for me.
Yeah, 60-40.
It's an FBI call. I mean, it's sort of like one civilian versus, like, I can't make that call. Like, it's really just...
You're the FBI director, Lisa.
I mean, I don't know what the protocol is. I feel like I need to know...
You can set the protocol.
Okay. Have shots been fired?
He's killed the receptionist, yeah.
Okay.
So you know this person is capable of killing.
Okay.
It's a really good one, right?
Yeah, that's pretty good, actually.
Yeah,
I'd keep him in the elevator.
You'd keep him in the elevator?
Yeah, without a doubt.
I think most people would.
But can't they surround the floor that he's going to get off of? I mean, it feels like there's got to be a way to risk opening the elevator.
Well, say there's two shooters. There's one downstairs holding a hostage that no one can enter the building.
If it's one life versus hundreds of lives, then it's the one life.
Yeah. But there's also the chance that the shooter could get out on the floor and not kill anyone.
If he didn't kill the person in the elevator yet, he's probably not going to kill him.
But that one guy in the elevator, he actually is a scientist, and he has in his briefcase, he has the secret to cure cancer.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then no.
Well, hold on. Him dying isn't going to change the contents.
He's the only one. No, but the other part of it is in his brain.
You only wrote half of it down?
Well, yeah, because
I would fucking kill that guy. I would like get the shooter out of there and I'd take him out myself. I'm like, fuck you, man. You have the cure and you're just being a dick about it?
Yeah. No, he doesn't want to get into the big cancer companies where they don't want the cure to come out.
Yeah. No money in that.
Mm-hmm.
Here's another.
No money at all.
Here's another caller. So I talked a couple of weeks ago about how I got a Fiesta Scramble with a cup of cottage cheese and a cup of fruit.
You did?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. We didn't talk about that before.
Everyone gave me shit about it. Well,
I applaud that.
Thank you.
It's old school.
It's not old school.
Exactly.
It's fine.
Exactly.
It's normal.
It's old
Sliced
school.
tomatoes.
Yeah.
You
know what's old school is making people feel bad about their cottage cheese choices.
I agree.
It's 2018, guys.
Triggered.
Here's a voicemail about that. Listen to this.
Hey, Maddox, I just want to say a big fuck you to all the people who are making fun of you for getting a fruit cup and cottage cheese. I happen to go with a group of people every single Saturday to a breakfast place where we get that exact Fiesta breakfast with the cottage cheese and the fruit cup. If you ever want to join us, we'd love to have you. We're the National Man Boy Love Association, NAMBLA. You're more than welcome to come. It's one of our staple meals that we get every single week. Fuck.
Yeah, fuck you too. You know what? Yeah, douchebag of the week. NAMBLA. It's just an NAMBLA joke, that whole thing. Fucking asshole.
You know what was great is that he really had me going for a second.
Yeah. He had me too. I was so excited. I'm like,
New
see?
person.
Someone else who's trying the Fiesta Scramble.
Friends.
Yeah. Whatever, assholes. Then I talked about smoking my first ever joint last week. I got a shit ton of calls about
This is 1,000 calls.
Yeah, there's so many calls. I'll just play a few more and then
You have several more?
I'll end it here. I'll just play these here.
Maddox, two things. First of all, when you walked into that secret party and smoked a joint and put it out halfway, I took the rest home, and your friend wasn't even smoking. Yeah, those people knew you didn't smoke. Second thing, who the hell brings half a joint home? I think that's just nasty. That shit was probably smelling up the whole studio. It smelled like resin in there. All your guests probably too polite to say anything about it, but just smells resiny as fuck. That fucking half-smoked joint. And it was $5. You couldn't have just stood there with it and let it burn itself out, or just, smoke the whole thing, or you weren't even inhaling. So anyways, that's my 2 cents. Have a nice day.
Yeah, I was inhaling. I inhaled like a pro. I inhaled all over the place. I told these guys I inhaled hard. All the way inside my lungs, Lisa.
That's exactly how we all talk about it, too.
Okay, I brought home half a joint last night on
I
420.
have a problem with this guy going off on bringing home half a joint. Because you know what the worst is when you want to smoke weed and you don't have weed.
Yeah.
Right? So if we bring home the half a joint.
Yeah,
Conserve.
And it didn't smell bad in here. Maddox always smells good.
Thank you, Taylor. All right, we got to wrap this up. Taylor, we should get to some quick news headlines. Taylor, what do you got for us?
Well, if you noticed that I was a little distracted halfway through the podcast, we have some breaking news, that is that Vern Troyer just passed away.
Ooh, Vern.
Vern Troyer,
Austin Powers.
best known for playing Mini-Me in the Austin Powers comedies and for being one of the shortest men in the world, has died. Vern died during this podcast, according to a statement from the family. It sounds like he was on life support since being taken to the hospital earlier this month. He's dealt with alcoholism issues.
Oh, that's a bummer. I've known some people who've known him very well. That's
right. I know, like, he's huge in LA, like in the influencer scene. Like, he's always like doing.
He's
stuff.
a really cool dude.
Yeah.
Well, that's a bummer.
Yeah, and it actually reminds me, even though we're at the end of our topic, I did want to bring up that show on TLC, Little Women, for part of this conversation, because you can look at that as being exploitative, but not if those women are empowered by it, getting to tell their stories.
Yeah, but then who decides whether or not the women are empowered? If they,
I know,
what do you
I
survey
know.
them? Do you have to? Yeah. All right. Anyway, I'm so curious to see this debate, how it pans out. Yeah.
All right.
Punches are still
so
flying.
Yeah.
something more interesting. Entrepreneur Christina Roth has created Super She Island, a private retreat off the coast of Finland where no men are allowed. Roth says her aim is for women to vacation at a destination away from society's pressures and embrace an all-female energy. The island sleeps 10 people in 4 luxurious cabins, offering wellness activities and opportunities for bonding. Roth picks the visitors herself. Those interested should be prepared for a vetting process via the organization's website. According to Roth, the main requirement is that the island is a zone without sexual tension, meaning you just come and just want to chill.
Yeah. So I guess on this island, lesbians don't exist, right? What a bunch of what a crock of shit. Lesbian, bisexual people, no sexual tension, only women there. What a bunch of horseshit. You're completely ignoring people's sexual attraction, sexual orientation.
You're the Qs like me. People queuing.
Yeah.
I'm questioning. Every day of my life.
Bi-curious Mikey Bolts.
Oh, I don't know. I say do what you want. You got an island. People want to go to it. Like, I got no beef with that. Although I think it's weird that it's like, I'll pick who gets to come. That's a little weird. Like, what criteria are you doing?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I mean, like, I can't imagine anything more annoying or boring. You know, it's like that I'm falling asleep just hearing about that island.
Yeah.
A little too specific.
Yeah, that's a bunch of horseshit.
If you're going to have your own island, you got to have quick rules. Quick rules. This is what we're doing here.
You guys want to go someplace with no sexual tension? Go to a fucking Michael's Craft Store.
Yeah.
Oh, there's lots of sexual tension at Michael's Craft Store. You just haven't been in the right corners.
Oh, yeah.
You're in the wrong aisle. You're in the
No,
perfume
I
aisle in the
wouldn't
corner.
A school superintendent, principal, and assistant principal were arrested for not telling authorities about a student fight club at their Connecticut high school, state police said Thursday. Several organized fights took place inside a math classroom at Monteville High School during school hours with the encouragement of a substitute teacher, according to police.
I saw this. There's a picture of like 2 kids in a headlock on the ground, and the teacher was like the cool teacher at school, so he was like, "Yeah, man, whatever." And he like facilitated this fight club.
I bet they called him by his first name too.
Yeah.
You know,
like Stan or Stu or something like that. What a
Come on,
badass.
guys.
Ryan
It's
was
just
his
Fred.
name.
Ryan.
What city was this in, or what state? Does it
This
say?
was in Connecticut.
Honestly, did
Montville
not
High
They're
School.
toughening up these kids.
I did not expect that coming out of Connecticut.
Yeah.
I don't know, but I don't know if that's like, I think of Connecticut as being really upper class, but I'm sure there's some shitty parts of Connecticut.
Yeah, where Yale is.
No, this was a nicer school, right? They were wearing uniforms, that sort of shit.
It was an affluent community, it sounds like.
Who won? Was it Brad?
So
Did
I guess
Brad win?
it was slap boxing.
Slap boxing.
That's not a fight club.
That shit's hilarious, though.
That sounds like Greek studies.
Yeah. Slap boxing / Greek studies.
Yeah.
Mikey, is that true? Is that accurate?
How is it Greek studies?
Yeah.
Just there's all sorts of like Olympic kind of games, and
That's a Greek
fighting is
stereotype.
a big it is
Yeah,
a
it's like
Greek
two
stereotype.
pussies fighting each other.
Wait, so is
That's what she's
slap
saying.
boxing like a thing? I just imagine it was like,
Yeah.
No, you can, it's like boxing, but you're not punching, you're
I've
slapping.
been slapped really hard before, so I can see it being a sport.
Mikey's a slapper for sure.
I don't
I've
slap.
been slapped. I've been slapped.
Yeah.
A former emergency operator in Texas was convicted of hanging up on thousands of 911 calls and was sentenced to 10 days in jail and 18 months of probation, prosecutors said. Williams had worked at the Houston Emergency Center for about 18 months, ending in 2016. She drew supervisors' attention for a high number of short calls that lasted fewer than 20 seconds. Data showed Williams hung up on thousands of calls, including reports of homicides, robberies, and speeding vehicles.
Jesus.
Williams told prosecutors she often hung up because she did not want to talk to anybody at those times.
Thousands?
Thousands?
It took thousands for this to become made aware of?
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, is there no quality control like at the 911 centers? Aren't those calls like specifically
Or
recorded?
do people, if you're calling on somebody who's like, there's a speeding car, wouldn't you call back and be like, hey, the last operator hung up on me?
Yeah. Also, whenever I'm like calling like banking or T-Mobile, they're always saying, this is on a recorded line. Why don't they say that on 911? Shouldn't they have like awareness that the call is recorded and that there's some quality
somebody's
control?
reviewing this?
Yeah,
They're
exactly.
all recorded, yeah. But I guess nobody really looked at the call logs,
Right.
the call times. That's interesting.
Maybe they should have asked her during the interview process, do you like talking on the phone?
Do you like helping people? Do you like saving lives?
Jesus.
Wasn't feeling it.
I got one more if you want.
Yeah, let's do a quick one.
ArmyTimes.com is reporting, in case you weren't already terrified of robots that can jump over walls, fly, or crawl, Army researchers are developing your next nightmare, a robot squid. And they want soldiers to be able to use 3D printers to make them on the battlefield. The U.S. Army Research Laboratory and the University of Minnesota are developing materials that can be 3D printed based on the flexibility and nimbleness of invertebrates, such as a squid, according to an ARL release.
Was that nippleness?
Yeah, that's what I thought he said.
Nippleness.
Nippleness.
Nipples and squids are kind of similar consistency, so maybe there was a...
Yeah.
Are the suctions different from the nipples? Are we still talking about nipples?
nimbleness?
Nippleness.
No, it's nimble.
Oh, they're nimble.
Nimble.
Okay,
RM.
they're nimble. Yeah.
Well, they're also nipply.
Yeah. They should make a very nipply squid.
Yeah.
Because that would disarm our enemies.
Yes.
If they look through like a periscope and you saw this boob floating towards you,
Just made of nipples.
you got to crank one out.
Yeah. It's just made of
Sounds
all.
frightening.
It's like a squid, but it's like 98% areola.
Yeah. Now we're
Yeah.
talking. I did see some squid news. Now I got a story, Mikey. Or I'm sorry, Taylor. I did see some squid news just before we did the show. They found a new type of squid that has horns on it.
Ooh.
Yeah, and it,
Horns?
like swims upside down. Yeah, it's weird. It's a weird looking squid. I guess all squids are weird looking.
Ocean life
Gross.
is terrifying.
Yeah, just fry them up. Fry those fuckers.
Yeah.
It feels like, everybody's always like, this is going to be 3D printed. Like, I've been told for 5 years that you can 3D print your gosh darn computer in a week. And, I feel like 3D
It's 'cause
printing
we
still
can't
is
handle
not a thing.
2D fucking printing. We can't. We haven't figured that out.
Yeah. Ron's a curmudgeon when it comes to printing.
No, I'm a curmudgeon against printer. I'm a curmudgeon against being sold this bill of goods about how technology is going to fix everything, and most technology we have right now doesn't fucking work.
Yeah.
Amazon Alexa keeps coming on in my apartment, and she's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't get that." I'm like, "Nobody's fucking talking to you, Alexa."
Pick an uncommon name. I feel bad for the Alexas out there who bought that or who's having an argument with their boyfriend or girlfriend.
I'm like straight up abusive towards Alexa.
I think we've all yelled.
Yeah, I don't want to talk to machines. I won't have an Alexa.
Well, I do, and I have something to say. Alexa, play Pantera. All right, guys.
Slam.
That's it for the show.
That was good.
All right, Lisa, where can people find you?
I guess on Instagram,
All right.
LS Ullman, ULLMANN.
LS Ullman. We'll link to it on our website. Lisa Ullman, thank you very much for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a
Fantastic.
pleasure.
Absolutely. Mikey Bolts, thank you.
Thank you, and thank you. You were great.
Sultan of Swag, thank you to the Deputy Cadet Moderator, Ron Babcock.
Thank you, Maddox. Thank you.
Thank you to the Junior Journalist, Taylor Nikolai.
Let's talk more about your penis.
But most of all, you're welcome.
I don't know about you guys, but I think the best way to discipline a kid is make him cook his own fucking food. See how he likes that shit. When he don't like the shit that you give him, he wants to be all picky. Oh, I don't want to eat this, I don't want to eat that. I just give the motherfucker a bag of potatoes and a fucking steak and tell, here, make something, motherfucker. See, you can do anything better.
Oh man, that guy's like my spirit animal.
Yeah.
Totally.
Hey there. Don't forget to subscribe to Madcast shows on iTunes, Stitcher, or your favorite podcast app. Okay, bye. Madcast Media Network.